Hello, this is First Fire Non-Assault Move. Welcome gamers to my very first video. I'm launching a new YouTube channel featuring wargaming content. There's going to be PC-based games and also board games. I have dug out of cold storage a bunch of Avalon Hill titles, SBI and GDW. Among the Avalon Hill is Advanced Squad Leader, rusty on the rules, but I am currently reading them, and it's going to be a little while before I can have ASL content on the channel, and I'm going to have to coordinate getting opponents over. I mentioned GDW. They had two incredible games called Fire in the East and Scorched Earth, both focused on the Eastern Front. And what we're looking at here is War in the East, which I think is the closest approximation to Fire in the East and Scorched Earth. It's pretty much a board game on the PC, which is probably why I love it so much. It's vast in scope. From 1941 to 1945, you can play the grand scenario, which I have loaded here and which we will play as well. I have only gotten to about 80% of the game, like amphibious invasions, airdrops. I haven't bombed many cities, so there's a lot that I haven't done with the game, but there's a lot I have. And maybe we won't get to every feature. It's so much to the game, can be overwhelming. Hundreds of formations at your command, an overwhelming amount of information at your fingertips. But at the end of the day, it's a board game, which I like to think of it. And we're going to use some strategy, some tactics, as we execute order number 21, Plan Barbarossa. And this is a 0-0 video, so we're not going to get to... No shots are going to be fired in this video. The next one we will. It will be 0315 on 22nd June 1941. And I want to read something here for you. I have a book. Get you in the mood. It's Army Group South, the Wehrmacht in Russia, 1941 to 1945, by Werner Haupt. Here's a passage. So at the precise minute, the hour of 0315 was marked by the opening of fire by hundreds of guns of all calibers and the launching of thousands of rounds from mortars onto known border fortifications, roads, and communication junctions. But all that's going to happen in the next video. Let's start the strategy talk. Army Group North, its prize. I'm going to zoom out. If you click in a hex and scroll the mouse wheel, it'll center on that hex, more or less. So we'll scroll out. We'll go north, and we'll look at Leningrad. First, though, I want to come over here, click this button, which turns off the units. It toggles them on and off, like so. This way we can remove some of the clutter, some of the busyness, and look at the terrain and how that's going to affect our plans. So here's Leningrad. We'll click on that and zoom out. And we come down here. We can see the front as it was June 22nd, 1941. Army Group North had Leningrad, you could say, as its main objective. We'll move south a little bit. We can, at this zoom level, we can see the front and Moscow at the same time. So you can see the immense distance Army Group Center had to travel to get to Moscow. And then we'll go south. Here we still have the front. We have the Romanians that are going to be lined up here as well with Army Group South. Army Group South was arrayed almost entirely here. And its main objective, among others, you could say, was Rostov. Definitely, where are we? Kharkov and Kiev. Of course, they weren't gonna, if they got there early, they weren't going to stop. So those are the main reachable objectives you could think that, or that historically were obtained in 1941. But again, 3 army groups, 3 separate agendas. What we're going to do is pick one of the three, and we'll have the other army groups support the main objective. So let's talk terrain. And by doing so, we're going to decide on which army group I am going to augment, and so doing will be my main line of effort. So looking north, you can see already the terrain is not encouraging. It's great terrain for the defender and crappy terrain for the attacker. As you can see, tons of forests, loads of swampy areas, and as Army Group North advanced east and north, it's gonna be canalized along this channel and kind of crammed in by the sea here to its left, to the north, and to the south and east, this mountain range. And as it gets squished in, it narrows the frontage for the Russians to defend an even greater depth and make use of all these rivers, these minor rivers and major ones, and get dug in amongst the rough terrain, the forests, and negate the art of maneuver and really hinder mechanized forces. So I don't like Army Group North as my main line of effort. So let's go a little bit east and pan down south again. And right around here, Army Group Center is arrayed. We'll toggle it on. And there they are. Toggle back off. And there's a little more clear terrain that the attacker can take advantage of and mechanized forces can take advantage of. But I've read a ton of books on the Eastern Front, and doing so, I really didn't get the impression of how dense and cluttered and how difficult the terrain was in front of Army Group Center as it advanced east, because it doesn't look much better than Army Group North's route to Leningrad. You got Minsk, and then after Minsk, it's lots of woods, again, lots of marshland. Major river here, the Dnieper, and as you approach Smolensk and a little bit east of Smolensk, it clears up, so that's encouraging. But past Smolensk to the east, as you march on Moscow, the terrain gets worse again. Lots of minor rivers. Vyazma, which we'll zoom in. The Russians can... it's a nice linchpin city for a main line of resistance for the Russians. And Ryzev, Kaluga. And just looking at it here, it's not the best. So, Army Group Center is not going to be my main line of effort. So where does that leave us? We'll pan south. We have Army Group South. So we'll pan west a little bit. As we said before, here's the front. And down here, we have the Romanians lining up as well to support. But right off the bat, you can see that the terrain looks much, much more favorable. Much more freedom maneuver once you break out of this gap here, kind of like the Fulda Gap there. You bust out, and you can use the terrain to your best advantage. Motorized forces, mechanized forces, exploit breakthroughs, get some encirclements. Much more freedom of maneuver at the commander's disposal. So we are going to go with Army Group South as our main line of effort. And in doing so, we're going to strip Army Group North and Army Group Center of just about a Panzer Corps each. We'll see what those divisions comprise of when we get to the next video, which will be 01, and I will spare you the rail movement that's going to take place. But that is the strategy. Not going north to Leningrad, not going up the middle to Moscow. We are going to, with great audacity, with great violence of action, break through to the south, secure the great industrial region in here, and I will show you that real quick. It's a nice feature. We're going to turn on factory locations. You can see there's a lot of nice factories that we can deny the Russians from using, and the game does not let you produce tanks or artillery from these factories. You just benefit from, I think, the manpower factor, which if we click on it or we hover over it, we can see right here, Kharkov is a gem. We really want to take that, because in doing so, we're going to deny the Russians armaments production 15, and that's a factor. I think it's 15 times 100, but we can look at that. But that's a trimmed down number. So, but as it scales, you can see 50 T-34 M1941s, then Su-2s, railroad, and heavy industry. That's Kharkov, and that's one of the major producers in this area. But you can see there's a whole lot of other factories that will be great to take from the Russians. Another consideration, and I guess we can bring this up now, I am not planning to win the war in the East in 1941. We are going to control our advance. We are going to have excellent a rail system. It's going to take a while, but supply was critical historically for the Germans. We're going to try to manage that better. We're not going to race ahead and extend if possible, but we won't turn down anything that we can exploit. So I'm looking ahead, 1943. I think that's when we will achieve all of the objectives and have enough victory points to win the game. 1941 is about grabbing as much land as we can in a controlled fashion, destroying as many Russian forces as we can, which is extremely important. I think that was priority 1 or 2 in the German order number 21. We can look at that or talk about it a little bit later. So Army Group South will advance the most. Army Group Center, I'm thinking Smolensk would be a win if we can take Smolensk and hold it and have a nice active defense in and around Smolensk. And coming up here, we're going to zoom in. I would like to defend along the Luga, advance up to here, take Novgorod as a nice center of gravity to anchor on for a defense, because you got Lake Ilmen. Soviets will have just a hard time attacking as we would through here. And then we have the mountain range here that will anchor our southern flank for Army Group North. If we don't get that far, and I'm not going to overdo it to get that far, then we'll settle for Pskov and this river here, Pilizma. And again, I apologize for any fluent Russian speakers mashing these names. So along this river here, this will be a nice center of gravity for our defense. And again, we can take advantage, just as the Russians would if we were attacking north and east. Now the Russians will be counterattacking west and south, and we will capitalize on the terrain for our main line of resistance. And that's the plan. Love to hear comments, what you think. I do have one alibi. I was talking about winning the war in 1943 here on the Eastern Front, and I was talking about having Rostov as a 1941 objective for Army Group South. Depending how things go, I want to show you Maikop. You can see it's not that far from Rostov, but you kind of have to take a hard, if you're facing a hard right turn, due south. We'll be extending our front to reach Maikop, because you can see right there fuel production, oil production. Fuel production 10, oil production 9. What that amounts to is great stuff. Great stuff for the Germans, because we can take advantage of that. We will reap the benefits of fuel production and oil production. And as the war progressed, as we know historically, that was logistics were a grave concern for the Germans as the war raged on through the years on the Eastern Front. So with the added Panzer divisions, 3 Panzer Corps, is it going to be 3? Yeah, I think I'm going to strip 1 from Army Group North, 1 from Army Group Center. And there's a Panzer Corps that's between Army Group Center and Army Group South. It's positioned and it's behind the front to the west a little bit, and that you could commit that Panzer Corps either to Army Group Center or Army Group South. Well, that one's going to Army Group South for sure. And we can point out all those wonderful Panzer divisions, Panzer Corps, and look at some of the historic leaders that are attached to those formations, which is really cool. The game has the leaders in there, and they really factor into the combat resolution, the combat values. Combat values are like the main number that's used for offense and defense when you do a combat resolution, and leaders, as you can guess, play a big part in that. So there's Maikop. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, maybe you can phonetically put it in the comments. Maikop. Yeah, to have that by 1941 would be great. So we're going to turn off factories. Turn back units. Scroll back to the front. Yeah, it's going to be Army Group South. There's a lot of arguments to take to do the opposite and go north and commit those Panzer divisions to Army Group North. Be great to have Leningrad. Then you can link up with the Finns. You really secure your northern flank across the whole front, north to south. You're going to disrupt some rail lines that the Soviets used. Maybe start taking advantage of supplies coming by sea. But it's just going to be banging your head against the wall along a narrow front against a very dense Soviet defense. And the game retreats with great alacrity, much more so than the Russians did. You'll see when we start playing, they are beating feet to the east, so that it's harder to replicate what the Germans were able to achieve encirclement-wise. But we're going to try. So that's about it. I'm extremely excited to start my channel with this incredible game, War in the East. Later on down the road, we'll have some Advanced Squad Leader and other board game titles. And I promise to work on my editing skills. It's a little rough around the edges right now as I get ramped up on the tools and work on my delivery. But I'm really excited to be a part of this, and I hope you will too. Thank you. This is First Fire Non-Assault Move. Out.